Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to WeatherBrains episode 870. 870. This is for what is this, the 19th of September? Yes, it is. All right, this is the magical time of the program. For those that have never watched this before, this is the pre-show. This is the part where we basically do three things. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and from time to time, we say very outrageous things. All right. So we've got to get a couple of things happening here. Got to get the embed code locked in. And so we can get it on television. For those that are new here, we simulcast this in our local television market. And so for our friends in master control to have access, we do that. And now we are going to invite everybody and get the gang on here. You know, the last couple of weeks, I've sent out the invitations early, and I just have not had time to do that. This is a very busy time of the year. It's a good time of the year, but a very busy time of the year. All right. I think Neil cannot make it. I think he's got a sick child, which I hate to hear. But that happens. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I believe that's everybody. All right. So now the invitations have been sent out. Hope you've had a good week. Yeah, these are basically two-a-days for me. You know, the two-a-days, that's when champions are made. I'm doing 2 school visits a day. And like sometimes they're a great distance away, and there's just one. Like, for example, tomorrow I'm speaking at Sheffield High School, which is 2.5 hours away. So that 5-hour travel time means I can just do one school. But for the ones that are closer in, I'm cramming them in. The demand has just exploded for some reason. I really don't know what happened. Maybe it's coming out of COVID. I don't know, but I've got schools now booked into 2024. Which is a sign of the times, I guess. But that's great. It's a win-win for everybody. I love doing it. I am absolutely energized when I go see school kids. A lot of people say it wears them out if they go speak to a gym full of 3rd graders or 4th graders. But for some reason, I feed back on that energy. And for a guy that doesn't sleep much, that is an integral part of my day. But I do that during the midday after the morning shift I do for radio and television, and then before the evening shift, which I'm in the middle of right now. And a lot of people don't know that a lot of us are working the night shift. James Aintelot is working the night shift in Tulsa. I'm on the night shift here. And so occasionally we get slightly distracted or we have to do other things, but we can multitask. Multitasking, the name of the game. I see Kim. Kim, how's that baby? And I think she just left the room for a minute. She's busy. New moms are, a mom of an infant is busy.
Always busy.
Very, very busy.
Very
busy. So we've got Monday Night Football on our channel tonight. I don't understand the concept behind that. So you've got Monday Night Football on ABC and ESPN.
They're competing against themselves. I guess they do that every Saturday to a great extent.
Well, the college games are all different. You know, they're all different. You know, but I guess
there's 2 different games tonight too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. That makes sense now. I understand. So yeah, I was not aware of that last week, and I was walking in there to do the 10 o'clock news, and there was nobody in there. The studio was dark. I'm thinking, I'm in the twilight zone.
Either late or early. Is it daylight saving time?
Yeah. So I figure we'll probably come on tonight about 11 Central.
But
we
can go to 11, right?
Yeah, we can just go to 11 o'clock. I mean, we can make this the longest episode ever.
Could happen.
And let me be sure I can get this where you can embed the show. What's weird, the default value is the embedding is off for some reason when you go live on here. And I've tried to find a way to override that, but I cannot.
No accidental Embedding.
Yeah, I don't quite understand that. But anyway, let me get in here and edit this so people can embed this if you would like to embed this. And yeah, it's just automatically turned off when you go live. Allow embedding save. So we are now embedded.
That's what they used to call the people for CNN and all those things when they were journalists, and during the war they were embedded or something.
Embedded.
Yeah. Pool guys.
Pool guys. That doesn't sound quite as serious.
Well, James A's got a nice suit there tonight.
He
Very
does.
nice.
He always
It's the only
looks
one
like
I got.
very well dressed man.
I've been to Kmart. I have my suit.
He's been to the suit store with Ron Burgundy.
It smells of mahogany.
Yeah, smells of rich mahogany. I'll tell you a weird secret about me. I have not purchased a new tie in 15 years. 15. I just don't buy clothes. To me, it's just, I have no interest in it. None, zero. And as old as I am, I just kind of recycle the ties. You know, I put them off in the side there, and I'll bring them back about 5 years, and people, ooh, you have a new tie. Well, no, it's 20 years old, but thanks for noticing. And I buy the cheapest suits.
You can stand out in the weather in them occasionally.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why, come on. I mean, it's like, they're just going to, I'm in schools every day and they just get beat down and they're in that nasty studio in there. And I just, I buy cheap suits and the cheap shirts, those things, they just come and go quick. And I get them from Amazon.com for whatever the cheapest price is because they don't last long.
What do you do for footwear during severe weather?
I wear, typically it's these. These are also extremely old. And occasionally I'll just be out there in socks, and I like to wear outrageous socks, but I'll get some tennis shoes out of the box in the garage and bring them. In fact, that's what I wear every night. I do not wear dress shoes. The only time I wear dress shoes, if I'm doing some big speech, for some big to-do Rotary Club or something. And when I go to I volunteer at a hospital. When I go out there, I wear dress shoes, but this is my standard fare here.
Yep. I'm doing the athletic-ish.
Oh yeah. So you got expensive ones. Those are nice. Very nice.
Well, there's a limit. There's people paying a lot of money for these athletic shoes.
But let's point out we do have pants on for those that are, those of us that do weather. Maybe not. Oh boy. Yeah. Getting into some show title stuff here. I have worked with many a news anchor and sports anchor that sit at the desk that do not have pants on.
Mm-hmm.
But in the weather business, we have to have pants on, but you don't, you really don't have to have the shoes on. I just go out there in socks a lot of times, just. These socks are like really nasty. I mean,
oh man,
we need smell-o-vision.
No, we don't.
Do you have one of the pads? We've got like a restaurant line cook padded floor thing. And man, it made a huge difference when we did that.
Yeah, the general manager, we were out there doing a tornado deal, and he just brought them out there one night, and they really did make a difference. I mean, I didn't even know what they were, but he just said, "Here, put these out here," and they are very nice. All right, Ryan, can you hear us all right?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Loud and clear. Good evening. Mic check time. We have to wait until the top of the hour to go on the air, so we got 45 seconds. Neil is out, and I think everybody else is in. Troy, you doing okay?
Doing okay. End of a long Monday, but doing okay.
Okay. Neil's
office hours for Professor Kimmel.
Yeah,
Wow.
office hours today. Yeah.
So are the grades that you give out to your students determined by your mood or other things?
I have for 34 years never given a grade. anyone in
Oh.
my class earns what they get. So
Ooh.
you would love this, Kim. Saturday night at the football game, I'm going down the elevator with some of the people from the EOC, and a voice in the back. This guy rises up. There's about 9 people in the elevator, and they said, "That's Troy Kimmel. He gave me a C in the class 20 years ago." And I was sitting there, and the people in the EOC kind of looked at me, and I kind of laughed, walked out the elevator, and I said, you pick your battles carefully. I said, I would have ordinarily said to him, I've never given a grade in my life. You earned that C, but I figured he was having a good time at the ball game. I didn't want to deflate that.
Maybe he was proud of the
Alright.
C. You never know.
Yeah,
some-
maybe.
Student like me.
All right, here we go. Let's get this sucker started. Welcome to those watching on television. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
Ooh, kind of a big deal. WeatherBrains episode number 870, the weekly show that's all about weather, longest running weather podcast in the universe, started in 2006, and here we are still on the air. And they said it wouldn't last. This is for Monday, the 19th of September, 2022, and we're glad you're with us this week. Going to be a very fun show, and I see that Kim, you are you're back so quickly. I mean, you're a trooper. I mean, goodness, your maternity leave was just so short. You're good at this.
After a while, you don't really feel like you have leave when you reach enough children anyway. So, I'm so used to not sleeping, but really the trooper is my husband, who right now is juggling bedtime for the 2 toddlers and the baby. So cheers for him. He's the one who's making this all possible.
Dear old dad. I
Mhm.
like it. We've got the well-dressed, well-coiffed James Adelot in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who is just coming off a television appearance. James, you're looking good tonight for those that are listening.
Thank you, sir. 100 coming tomorrow and 101 on Wednesday. And Rick and Kim and I are all staring at a little bit of a cooler day, a 1-day cool down for Thursday. So happy for that.
Our subsistence chasing team, by the way, is on duty, and they are out in your neck of the woods to totally cover this event. We're going to do mid-90s here, which it's pretty hot, but we're going to get a pretty good shot of cooler air Friday. You'll get a glancing blow out there, but it's the summer that never ends. Now, speaking of summer that never ends, Troy Kimmel in Austin, have you been under 100 in the last few weeks?
We've been generally in the mid 90s lately, but I'm with the James with hair. And we'll probably hit 100 again, 101 maybe for, I think maybe Thursday or Friday. I don't think that front comes very far south into central Texas, probably pulling up stationary. And then we've got our fingers crossed for that next front sometime late Sunday night or Monday morning. But I would love to have a 75-degree day and about 35% humidity. I would just love it at this point.
Rick Smith, help this man, Rick.
I'm right there with him. I couldn't agree more. The only thing that's getting me through the summer-like temperatures now is knowing that they can't last that much longer. I don't think. We looked at some stats today, and the latest Oklahoma City's ever had 100-degree temperature is September 30th. So, of course, it could happen after that, but there's light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm definitely looking forward to that 2.5 weeks of fall that we get here in Oklahoma. So,
amen. I think ours, Rick, is October 2nd for 100-degree days. For some reason,
I was going to say October 2nd was your day of fall. So,
yeah, well,
we were kidding people here that, when it's 95 again after Thursday and the first day of fall, those are still technically fall temps since they're occurring in fall. But that's not what anybody wants.
I love Kim's what she just said, going straight from 100 to an ice storm. Now that's the kind of weather right there that we like.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. All right, Jen, you're in the land of the Arctic Circle up there. Send us some cool air, please.
All right. I am definitely going to feel like fall. As soon as we hit the fall season, let's see, my Thursday high is 66 and Thursday night low 43. So You guys can have I don't mind that at all, though.
Ooh, very nice. All right. Well, we got a fun show tonight. Bill Murray, let's bring in our guest before he runs.
Yeah, James. Tonight's guest WeatherBrain was scheduled to appear back in May, but we had to reschedule Tonight, we're glad to have an evening of quiet weather so that we could welcome internet weather sensation Ryan Hall from Ryan Hall Y'all fame. Ryan, welcome to the podcast. Where are you coming to us from tonight?
I am at the Ryan Hall Y'all Studios here in Eastern Kentucky. And I just want to say before we get started, I'm super happy to be here. I'm excited. I'm a big fan of the show. I've been watching since I was like 17, so a little bit over a decade now. So this is awesome. This is awesome for me.
Yeah, you probably weren't even born when we started the silly thing. So,
Yeah, really.
But 2 weather podcasts in a week. You're making the rounds. I haven't gotten the list to the Stormfront freaks yet because I didn't want to, get any of that discussion into tonight. I'm sure there probably will be some overlap, but I'm sure you had a good time with them. They know how to throw a weather podcast.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really entertaining. I hadn't watched a lot of their stuff before, so it kind of threw me for a loop. But it was fun. It was really fun. I had a blast with it. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's always fun to be over there. But talk to us for a minute about where you grew up, a little bit about you. We always love to learn about our guests, and that we're especially interested tonight in learning about your background. Well,
I was born and raised in Eastern Kentucky, a little bitty tiny town at the far eastern part. Grew up, my dad was worked in the coal mines, went to public school here, played baseball, had a pretty normal Southern Appalachian, upbringing. The only thing, I guess, extraordinary or different about me my whole life has been my obsession with weather. And that was really unique to me growing up. I thought, and the people around me thought, that I was like the only person on earth that was like this. At 6 years old, I knew what I wanted to do, and it wasn't a firefighter or so I wanted to be a National Weather Service warnings, coordinator. Like that was what I wanted to do at the age of 6. So, that's kind of been my identity since then, really. So, Eastern Kentucky, born and raised. That's still where I am right now.
Well, obviously, probably there were big events in your childhood that made you get that interest in weather. Most people can point to an event or two or a series of events. What was it for you?
To be honest with you, I've had whatever it is that makes me so interested in this from birth, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what sparked it. I don't remember a certain moment where it's like, what, this weather thing's pretty cool, or like there was no impactful thing that happened that changed anything for me. It's just always been there. And I really, really couldn't tell you where it came from. Got bit by the bug, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, so it must be in the DNA. That's gotta be it. That's the only explanation.
Right.
So talk about your journey through school and did you do any time in college for meteorology? How did your journey sort of evolve?
Yeah, so my journey with school is another thing that's a little bit unique and it's different. And it all boils down to because my whole life I've been the weather kid, the weather boy, whatever. School and education was always just a means to an end for me. It's like I knew what I wanted to do. And at the age of 18, I was so full of myself. I thought, you know what, I'm good enough. Put me in front of a green screen. I'm ready to go. Like who wants, I don't want to, do the rest of this stuff. Looking back on that now, I wish I wouldn't have taken that stance. I wish I would have taken it a little bit more seriously, but I was just so gung-ho and ready to go into trying to be this weather communicator. By the time I got to high school and was getting ready to go to college, I had kind of dropped the ambition to work at the National Weather Service. I realized that's not what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was be, at the time, I thought it was like a TV meteorologist. That's really what I wanted to do. And I spent so much time being told by everybody around me that you're the best weatherman that we've ever met, that I thought that it was true. The second I left, high school, I was in a position to where I did want to go to school. I wanted to go get my meteorology degree and then, go get a job after that. But I was in a position where I didn't do good enough in school to get all of my college paid for. And also my father, working in the mines, made enough money to where I couldn't get any financial aid, but he didn't have any. So I wanted to do everything that I could to lower the expense on my part. So I, right out of high school, went to a community college, got an associate's degree in science. And from there, I was ready to go. I wanted to go work on TV. So I applied for jobs at news stations just to be around that environment. You know what I mean? I didn't care if I was going to be the janitor. I didn't care what it was. Like, I just wanted to be there. And thankfully, the local station here got me on board as like a cameraman, a local CBS affiliate. And I just kind of moseyed my way over into the weather center every chance that I got. And Chief Meteorologist Shane Smith at WYMT ended up becoming a good friend of mine and a great mentor. And while I was there, we kind of discovered, he knew what I wanted to do. They knew what I wanted to do. They knew I was passionate about it. They gave me time on the green screen. They gave me time working with the graphics stuff. They were very supportive. And we kind of just came to the conclusion that I should do broadcast meteorology online through Mississippi State University and work there. That was the plan. And I started doing that. And I really enjoyed being there. I did an internship. I did a full internship under Chief Meteorologist Shane Smith one semester. But over time, the further I got into that job, the more that I was in it. I mean, I was pretty much doing it every day. You know what I mean? I got to the point to where I was wearing a suit. I would get on the green screen. I was making the forecast. I was doing all of the graphics work and stuff. I just kind of realized about halfway through that this ain't it. It wasn't for me. My whole life had been building up to this point, and for whatever reason, I was like this, I can like weather. I can do something involving weather without doing this specifically. So I just kind of dropped it there. And I didn't finish my degree in meteorology. And I just kind of left the TV weather enterprise at that point. So that's pretty much the whole story about the education side of things.
What do you think about it was that made you want to walk away from it? What specifically about television turned you off?
It wasn't so like, I love the weather, right? I love everything about it. And I really like communicating. I like, being on the radio or TV or any sort of recording. I like using my voice and I like talking to people. But you guys know that's a very small part of your job. Whenever you're on TV, you get, how many minutes during a newscast to actually do the weather. A lot of times it ended up being a whole lot of stuff that I wasn't personally as interested in. And I wanted to do something where my whole self was poured into constantly nothing but the weather. And so, then, I started thinking about, maybe I need to do storm chasing, or maybe I need to do this or that. But whatever it was, I knew it wasn't that. And it just wasn't for me personally.
Well, that makes sense. So talk about what you did next. What did you pivot to?
So right after that, I got in a situation where I needed a job, so I was out of school. I was no longer working at that news station. I could have continued working at the news station at any level other than, what I originally went there for. But I wanted to venture out a little bit, and I tried my hand in entrepreneurship. I started a couple of businesses, one of them, which was a social media marketing company, and they did incredibly well. They just kind of blew up. And I ended up managing a lot of YouTube channels and helping them grow. And I was responsible for, a lot of channels that got hundreds of millions of views on YouTube. And I just kind of, because not only was I the weather kid always growing up, but when YouTube came out when I was in sixth grade, I also had a big interest in that. And I always wanted to be a YouTuber. So it was another one of those things where I just became obsessed with it and taught myself everything I possibly could about it. And I just learned how it worked and helped other people grow their channels and stuff. And that's where, that's what I went to after leaving the news station. But I didn't realize until just recently, it was 2021, January of 2021, that I could put my two passions together and actually make it work. I didn't realize that there was such a need for what I'm doing, I guess. I thought that if I ever wanted to make a YouTube channel, it's got to be about something that people are interested in, like top 5 fails or, doing epic pranks or something. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in YouTube and how it works, but I'm not interested in being a YouTuber per se. But it was just on a whim one day. I decided, you know what? I'm going to try to do this YouTube thing and the weatherman thing, put them together and see what happens. And here we are.
I was going to put James Adelot on the spot because he said what I was thinking in the chat. He said, do Fortnite on YouTube. I know my kids try to hand at that and they didn't get very far. So one of them still called Tiny Tuber on his YouTube account.
Right.
So that's pretty funny. That's pretty crazy. So now you're doing this other stuff, and I guess you study people like Gary Vaynerchuk or other YouTube adopters that did this well. Who are some other folks, or how did you learn? How did you teach yourself how to do that, Ryan? Or was it all kind of organic?
It was. So if you're talking about YouTube specifically, the way that I learned how to make YouTube work was just by being the ultimate YouTube consumer. When I was growing up, once again, YouTube came out. It became a big thing when I was like in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I didn't watch TV anymore after that. All of my celebrities, everything that I followed was on YouTube. The only thing that mattered in the world of media, I didn't watch movies even, it was YouTube and YouTubers. So just being that interested in it and constantly looking at these videos and watching it, and also wanting to be them, wanting to be the people who were on the other side of the screen, led me to just kind of figuring out what works. Is like, oh, that I like this YouTube video because of that, or I clicked this YouTube video over this one because of that. I just started recognizing those things, not because I literally sat down and tried to study it, but it's just natural. It's just something that came because I was so interested in it.
That's pretty cool. So Ryan, I do a YouTube video every week. So James gets at least one day off, and it, as they say on the Allstate commercials, gets tens of views. What should I be doing, and other people who want to do YouTube videos successfully? What are some of the secrets that you can share without having to get into the content of your course if you teach such a thing?
Well, I don't teach a course. I don't do that anymore. Literally the only thing that I do is this now. I'm the internet's weatherman is what I'm calling it. But I would say that if somebody wanted to start a YouTube channel or do anything involving internet media, TikTok, whatever it is, just first of all, figure out why you're doing it. Not everybody has to get millions of views or hundreds of thousands of views. Like, that's not always the only reason to do it. Sometimes tens of views is the reason why you're doing it. Like if you're doing something that means a lot to you and to those 10 people, yeah, that's awesome. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But if your goal was to make it a sustainable career or something like that, then the opportunities are endless, but it just comes down to providing value for people. If you can do something, like if you can be confident in yourself, learn how to talk to a camera and then talk about something you actually know about, like, and like people are interested in that topic, people will come. You build it, they will come. There's no trick to it. There's no hack. You know, a lot of people think that maybe the only part is making clickbait thumbnails, but it's not. It's not just that. There's a whole other aspect to it, because let's say you made the most appetizing thumbnail on earth, right? Let's say literally nobody could not click this thumbnail. If you've got 1 million people clicking on your thumbnail, but they exit the video within the first 3 seconds because they don't like it, or they're not getting what they came for, YouTube's not going to promote that video. You're not going to get anything out of that. So there's, you have to have, you have to know what you're talking about. You have to be passionate about it, and you just have to be authentic. There's no cheat code or anything like that.
Well, that's good advice, and very interesting. Dr. Neil Jacobs couldn't join us tonight because of a commitment that he had, but he did send over a couple of questions, and this is one of the ones that he sent. What's the business model for a YouTuber, Ryan? What is the way that you monetize it?
So it's different for everybody nowadays. Literally, if you've seen somebody on YouTube who's doing YouTube full time, and they've got, let's say they're getting more than 200 or 300,000 views a video, it's a business, right? They've got people that work for them most of the time. They've got accounting, they've got, all of this stuff going on. And it's just completely different for everybody, just like every real business has different ways of operating. But the main thing, one of the main things that people get money from, I guess, on YouTube is through the AdSense program. So if I get 1 million people that watch one of my videos, you'll see ads at the beginning and in the middle of the videos and stuff. YouTube splits that revenue that they make off of you looking at that ad between us. I get 55%, they get 45% every time. And it just depends on how much the person that bought that ad paid for it. That determines how much I make. And it really comes down to like a half a penny or something per view. But if you get a lot of views on a consistent basis, it can add up to a pretty significant amount. Another way, something that we've been doing is through like merchandise. If you can make a product or something that people are interested in and you can sell it, that's a big way that a lot of YouTubers go about generating revenue. And then sponsorships, companies are interested in sponsorships. That's another way that we do it too. The average viewer of a Ryan Hall Y'all video is like a 45-year-old homeowner. And a lot of these people aren't used to the way that YouTube does advertisements. It's like if I'm sponsored in a video by a company, the way that I present that advertisement is way different than a TV commercial. It's more interactive. It's more personal. It's more direct, connection with the person watching. It's more laid back, and it just works really well. So these companies are interested in working with people with that audience. So there's a million different ways to make it work, but it's different for everybody. But that's how we do it.
That makes sense. Do you edit all of your videos yourself? And talk about the rest of your team, because I know you have a team of people who you work with. Talk about how you do that.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people on the team now, but for a very long time, it was just me. It was like I'd say the first year, for an entire year, it was just me editing the videos, making the thumbnails, coming up, making a 10-minute long video about the weather. Like there's research that goes into that. You have to really sit down and think about what you're going to say. You have to make sure you understand what's going on now. You have to kind of write it out, and like the writing process for that and the production, like trying to make sure that it's a good video, it takes a lot of time. And so I would wake up at like 4 a.m., start writing, and then, start filming, edit everything myself. And then also content distribution, making a TikTok to promote the YouTube video, making an Instagram post to promote the YouTube video, doing Twitter and all this stuff. I was doing it all by myself. It eventually got to the point to where, this was like well over 100 hours a week of work. And I was just I was away from my family so much. And it was, I've got a 20-month-old son. So this is all happening at the same time we're raising him. It eventually got to the point to where, like, if I want to keep doing this, if I want to scale this up, I've got to get help. So the first thing I did was I got a writer that helps me make the videos better. And then I got somebody that reaches out to brands and companies that want to sponsor me, and they handle all that crap. I don't like dealing with that. So I got somebody that handles all that for me. And then the biggest help was hiring editors. I've got 3 editors now, high level, like awesome editors that I don't know how this happened, but they're also super passionate about weather. So if I'm talking about something, even if it's complex, if I'm just talking about it in the video and I hand it off to an editor, they'll make an animation that shows what it looks like, and without me even having to be there to completely guide them step by step. So we've got editors. And then also the most recent addition to the team is we have 3 meteorologists on the payroll who kind of are there mainly because we do live coverage. We do live severe weather coverage whenever there's big events. I want to make sure that we've got a lot of eyes on different areas, because we don't stick to one place. If there's warnings in 8 states, we're covering all 8 states. And sometimes when people come to depend on me for that coverage and there's that much stuff going on, I'll miss stuff, right? Like I'm focusing on this one storm, but there's another one that's getting ready to be really bad. And I can't look at 2 storms at once as in-depthly as I can one. So I've got people in the background who are keeping an eye on these other storms and then chiming in, be like, hey, Ryan, check out that storm up there to the north, or check out this one real quick. It's about, we're thinking this might happen. And then also they consult with me. They check everything that I say, before it goes out in the video. So I'll be the first one to admit I'm not the number one expert on meteorology. I'm not. So whenever we come out with a video or we want to talk about something, I want to make sure that I'm not, going the wrong way or leaning the wrong way, or maybe leading the viewer astray. So we've got the meteorologist on staff to help with that.
So that's interesting, Ryan, that you're having to cover lots of areas. Jen, I know you have a lot of experience doing that in radio when an outbreak or event spans several different states. Jen, talk about how difficult that is to keep up. And then Ryan, you share your experience, because I'm sure you're kind of learning as you go how to make that the best. Jen, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, it's slightly different, obviously, because I'm doing radio stations, but we do cover many different markets. And so if there is a bigger outbreak that covers, or we have to go be in different cities, is trying to bounce back and forth. And then I cover different areas of the country too. So there's a learning curve on, are you saying the county name right? Are you saying the city right? Because if you don't sound local, then they're going to know. And people call you out pretty quick. You learn very quickly that the town in Kansas is Shinshin. When you spelled Schoen, you learn very quickly how to say things. And so it is a challenge. And so I'm sure that you run into those type of things too. What are some of the challenges for you as you're trying to cover, especially if you have a bigger outbreak with multiple warnings at one time? How do you make the decision on what you're going to cover?
Yeah, I totally understand the pronunciation of town names. That you ask anybody who is like a fan of what I do and they're always watching, I always disrespect the locals. Like they're always making fun of me because I always say the town names wrong. I try to make a joke out of it. Because as long as they get the gist of what I'm talking about, the mission accomplished. But my goal is the longer I do this, the better I'm going to become, right? So I've covered severe weather events in, just about every state that has them now. And by the time it's over with, we'll go, 8, 10, 11 hours sometimes. By the end of that stream, I feel like a local. I know all the town names, not as in-depthly, not as intricately as I would if I worked there as a TV weather person per se. But I feel like 10 years from now, it'll be pretty close. So I'm constantly trying to learn. And I let it be known in the beginning. It's like, hey guys, I'm not familiar with this area. I'm probably going to say your town wrong. That's part of the show. Okay. Laugh at me, make fun of me all you want. It's okay. But, correct me and I'll try to do better next time. I'm pretty sure I had the whole state of Massachusetts laughing at me during that blizzard that they had last year because of my pronunciation of Worcester. I'm still saying that wrong. I know I am, but that was a fun thing, and it happens in just about every state.
I'd love to follow up on that. I have a question, but really quickly, I'll just say to Jen that Germantown, which in German would be pronounced Shinshin, I have seen many times while chasing. I always wondered how the locals pronounced it. So it's close, but not quite the German pronunciation. If I were in your shoes, Ryan, I would butcher all of those. Yeah. And that's one of the fun things about this. So my question for you, Ryan, it was very clear when you were talking about your background that you have a real strong attachment to Kentucky. And I can see how passionate you are about the where you're from, the people there, and where you started this, to my understanding, really was focused on Kentucky. I'd love to hear you talk about that origin, that beginning, and the place you maybe knew really well when you started, and how it was you decided to branch out. How did you do that? I feel like that can be a whole different game in some very important ways. And it sounds like one of the ways you've adapted is you sort of admit to your audience, I'm learning this. I don't know these places yet. Okay, tell me what it really is. Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I do love the place that I'm from, Kentucky. I wouldn't live here if I didn't. Like, this is not like nobody really chooses to live here, like in Eastern Kentucky. I'm just to be honest, this isn't a place to go live. That's one of the reasons why I'm so happy that we've been able to build this team completely online, because it would be hard for me to talk people into moving to Pikeville, Kentucky to work at an office or something. But yeah, and it's kind of remarkable that I developed this fascination for weather living here, because my whole life, I only ever really saw a portion of the sky, a very small part of it between two mountains. And, my first ever storm chase in Kansas was the first time I ever saw a supercell in its glory, like the full thing. I was like, whoa, you know what I mean? This is what storms look like. So the fact that I developed that interest is pretty interesting to me. The most impactful severe weather event that ever happened in Eastern Kentucky in my lifetime was honestly just a couple months ago with the big flooding, the big floods that happened. So there was it wasn't like there was these constant triggers and reminders of like, oh, this is why I like weather and stuff like that. It's just, once again, I don't know exactly where it come from, but it's there. And you're right. I did start kind of forecasting weather just specifically for Eastern Kentucky. And I started doing that a long time ago. Once again, I was the weather kid. And as weather kids do in this day and age, I made a Facebook page probably when I was like 14 years old. East Kentucky weather, I think I called it. And yes, it did. It got very popular. It got all kinds of followers and likes and shares. And I did hype up the snowstorms. That's exactly what I did. But I am so thankful for that experience, because doing that was another way that got me into understanding social media and how it works and how to make sure people see what you're doing and stuff like that. Even though I know now that it probably wasn't the best thing. I see the problems with it now, but as a young person, as a kid, the fact that I could make a Facebook page and have a bunch of people see my maps that I made in Microsoft Paint or whatever was just awesome to me. And I did. I started with East Kentucky. I made a blog post every day my entire high school career, and it was pretty popular. But that kind of faded away around the same time that I left the the news station in Eastern Kentucky. So I stopped doing that for a good 5 years or so before I started the YouTube channel. So there was no, it was kind of, there was no slow bleeding into it. It was just like one day I was solely doing these weather forecasts, kind of like amateur style for Eastern Kentucky. The next day, boom, we're doing the entire nation. And it was kind of a shock because once again, when I started the YouTube channel, I did not expect it to turn into what it is today. It was fun. It was like, oh, let's try this. There's a bunch of weather nerds out there. We'll probably attract them and we'll nerd out about the weather. We'll geek out about the weather together. It just happened to turn into this thing where people are actually now relying on our channel for live severe weather coverage sometimes.
Yeah, and I'll maybe get into this a little bit later. I think that's a fascinating transition to make. And one of the things that I think anyone who's a transplant can sympathize with is you come to understand weather in your local place, not just how it behaves, but you also understand what everyone around you thinks about the weather. And so it has to be really challenging going to these other places where not only are the weather patterns maybe less familiar, but also how the people who live there understand them and interact with them, because that's what you're trying to connect with as a communicator. So I think that's a really interesting area. Maybe we can talk about a little bit more in a little while, but really quickly, I wanted to follow up on something that you just said, where you were talking about the Facebook page that you made when you were younger. And if you've listened to the show a lot, I know you've heard span here are James with less hair, we'll say, not no hair, just less hair. He's commented about exactly people like you when you were growing up, the teenagers with access to social media making pages, and the questions that this raises for our community. And you mentioned that there were things you sort of learned in that process, maybe things that you wouldn't do the same way. What were those things? What were things that you felt were practices that you inhabited, as a teenager in Facebook? And what is it that maybe you would do differently now?
Well, a lot of what I was doing as a teenager is very similar to what I do now, but I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I was just addicted to the interactions, like any kid would be. I made a Facebook page. If I said it was going to snow a lot, buddy, the likes and the comments and the shares and the attention rolled in. And that was awesome to me. I was a kid. I wanted to be the weather guy. Now I felt like I was. So, but really, I was sometimes, and I wasn't the worst at this. Okay. You guys have never heard of this. It wasn't some viral thing that everybody made fun of. Like I wasn't the world's worst at this. But like sometimes I would embellish, certain aspects of the forecast or whatever, simply because of that. And that's obviously something that you shouldn't do. But what I did learn was ways to take away the posts that got the high interaction, the posts that did really well. I learned that there were certain aspects or certain things about those that wasn't just the numbers on the screen that people liked and people enjoyed and wanted to see more of. So I kind of learned to take a lot of that away and put it into a more reasonable and no nonsense sort of format. But yeah, I 100%. I've heard James talk about that. And I agree with him. I agree with him 100%. And I have his same stance on it because I was that kid. You shouldn't be making, forecasts that are embellished solely to get likes and shares and comments and stuff. But hey, I was there one day and I was doing the same thing. And I completely understand why you're doing it. And anybody who's got the same level of passion as I do about this stuff would have done it too if it existed back when they were, growing up. So that's what I think about it. I don't think it's great, but I'm glad that I did it because I learned a lot from it.
So Ryan, some people criticize you for the thumbnails that you use on your videos and stuff. They say that they're hyperbole. How do you separate that from what you just said about, you really shouldn't embellish the forecast or anything like that? How do you defend that?
So the thumbnails for my videos are, in my opinion, now it's open for debate for sure. But in my opinion, they're not very much embellished as far as what the forecast is, right? Like this thumbnail is a tiny little image on your phone that you're probably going to look at for a half a second, and you're either going to scroll past it or you're going to click it. That's how I interact with thumbnails. I don't like zoom in and try to fine tune like what's going on in this thumbnail before I click it. I don't do that. I don't know anybody that does. But then once you get into the video, there is no embellishment. There is no like, oh, actually, I know the National Weather Service is saying it's going to snow 3 inches, but I think it's going to be 3 feet. Like I don't do that. You know what I mean? But in the thumbnails, my defense for what I do with the thumbnails, and I do see the argument against them. I understand it, but I understand YouTube. I understand how this works. If I've got 3 meteorologists on the payroll, I've got a writer, an editor, I got all this stuff. If I'm going to put this much effort into a video that actually really is going to help people, I've got thousands, hundreds of thousands of testimonies to prove it. I'm going to do everything I can to get that in front of people. And it's not my fault that YouTube decided that colorful thumbnails where you kind of exaggerate or kind of zoom in on the most important or interesting part of the video are what get clicked. Like that wasn't my decision. That was YouTube's decision. I'm following their rules. So once again, I understand the counter argument. I understand where people are coming from. And if I believed that there were people out there that were hyper analyzing my thumbnails and not watching the video, I would probably change that. But I just don't believe that's happening. I don't believe that's happening at a big level, like at an impactful level that outweighs the net positive that comes from my channel anyways. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely compelling and always attractive for sure. So I didn't know that was something that YouTube actually teaches or tells you. That's interesting. Is that something they've just learned from successful entrepreneurs who've been, who've had good achievements with their system?
The YouTube algorithm is just a reflection of human psychology. There's not somebody at YouTube that says that, okay, we're going to make colorful thumbnails more popular. This is an AI generated thing that's been going on since the beginning of YouTube, figuring out naturally what makes people click on a video. And it just turns out that it's bright colors and it's big white text with a stroke around it and a drop shadow. Like that's what it is. And once again, I'm replicating a very successful format for YouTube videos that worked in other industries. If you're a gamer, if you are somebody who, talks about, anything, Pokemon cards, whatever it is on YouTube, they all do this same thing. It's just I am now putting weather maps underneath that text. And it's a little different. And I think the number one thumbnail that comes into question and something that a lot of people have been talking about on Twitter recently is this one about snow that I just did. I did a winter outlook because there was nothing else to talk about that day. But basically what happened there is in the video, if you watch the video, I go over averages. Okay. I go over averages of, how much snow an area can usually see in a given year based on the past 30 years of data or whatever. Okay, so I start the video off talking about that. And then I go in talking about how, at least as we enter winter, we're probably still going to be in a La Nina pattern. And I go over the effects of, on average, what La Nina does to our winters here in the continental US. And then I talk about some sea surface temperature anomalies and stuff and some short-term weather that might impact our winter. And I put all that together and I make a winter weather outlook. I say, we just talked about how much snow you can receive on average. And here is based off of La Nina and everything else that we just talked about. Here's what I think could happen. So this area might get more than average. This area might get less than average. Compare those two maps together and you can determine how much snow you're going to get this year. There's a lot of people, obviously, if you look at the image here, 600,000 views on that video. There's a lot of people who are interested in that information. And the thumbnail just made sure that that information found those people. You know, like YouTube would have stopped promoting it. YouTube would have stopped sending it to people if they were clicking on it and felt like they were baited. YouTube would have stopped giving it to people if they thought that, oh man, I'm going to get 4 feet of snow. And then they clicked on the video and they realized that that's not exactly what was happening. And then they didn't watch any more of my videos. YouTube wouldn't promote it. I know I have all the data. People are watching this entire video and they're leaving with value. They like it. It's a good video. But they wouldn't have seen it if I would have named the video Winter Outlook for 2022. And that's it. And like the thumbnail was just some high detailed map that you can't tell anything about. The idea behind this thumbnail was to make an image that resonates with people who are interested in snow. This looks like your traditional snow map. It's got the pink and the blue. You've seen that a million times. It's how a lot of people make their snow maps. The exact location of the colors weren't on the forefront of my mind, because once again, I believe that most people are going to look at this for a half a second and either scroll past it or click on it to figure out what's going on. And then the 4 feet of snow text there is pointing at the Chicago area, which places around there and just to the north can see 36 to 48 inches of snow on any given year. So that's, once again, I'm not defending what I'm doing here. I'm just explaining why I'm doing it. It could be wrong. I'm open to that. I'm open to that idea. I'm learning as I go here. I'm the only one that's doing this at the level that I'm doing it. So I have to figure out as I go what works, what's going to actually get the information to people without, you know, me doing too much with the thumbnails. You know what I mean? I'm going to discover that line eventually. But we're rolling with the punches and going with what we've got right now.
I do have a comment, and this actually comes from one of our listeners. And then I watched the video too, and the one is the one about the 4 feet of snow deal. And I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of the thumbnails and, you know, colorful, and you want people to click on things. But we were talking about embellishments, and then I think it's some of the wording that you use, like you use the word exactly. I'm going to tell you exactly how much snow you're going to see. And actually in the video too, in that first sentence, you say, I'm going to tell you precisely how much snow you're going to see in your backyard. We really can't say exactly and precisely, you know? So I think that's where, sometimes that's where some of the angst comes from in terms of when we watch the videos, what we're going to see, and, you know, making those type of wordings. And so that was just a question and a comment that came from one of our listeners as well.
Right. And I get that as well. I understand that. But I think what it comes down to is once again, people just don't understand the intricacies of how YouTube works. It's a YouTube video, first of all. First and foremost, it's a YouTube video. I don't claim to be some high-level forecasting agency. I call what I do weathertainment, you know, most of the time. And the people who watch, for the most part, understand that. But the title, here's exactly how much snow you're going to get. It's a bit of a meme. It's a bit of a play on words. It's a bit of a double take. Wait, did he just say exactly how much snow I'm going to get in my backyard this year? It's a hook. It's a headline in the beginning of the video. And once again, the video would not be as successful as it is right now if people would have heard that and then were later disappointed by the fact that I didn't tell them to the centimeter how much snow that they were going to get. I didn't say that in the video. You know, I didn't say exactly how much snow anybody's going to get. I gave a range and an above or below average forecast. The people who, obviously not everybody liked it. There are going to be people who dislike the video and in any situation, but the vast majority of the people who were looking for that left with value and they enjoyed it, and they weren't totally offended by the wording in the title because the quality of the video.
So the social scientist here is going to chime in. I think that, you know, between that and something you said earlier, I'm really intrigued by something of your approach and want your thoughts on it. You mentioned that you wouldn't do this if you felt like it was, if people didn't really understand the gist of the message that you're trying to convey. I think something that we talk about a lot in forecasting and communication of every meteorological attribute under the sun is do we need to perfect every map we're giving? Do we need to optimize every single little bit of information? Do we need to all say the same thing for people to understand something important about the forecast? And there's this real drive in our community to do exactly that. But there's a really important question the social science community asks, and that you're sort of getting at here, which is, does the rest of the world that's not weather, very weather expert, actually care about those distinctions and all of those details, or do they carry away something of the gist of the message? And I'm curious, you mentioned that you're not really that concerned because it's your sense that people are carrying away more of like a high level takeaway, and maybe like you feel like they're understanding what it is that you're really trying to say. Can you comment a little bit more about what leads you to that conclusion and that belief? And I can see it's something that on the social science side, we are really interested in that question. And in some ways, it could maybe give forecasters a little bit more freedom if that's something that is true and is happening. So just love your thoughts on that.
So YouTube is pretty unique in the fact that even though my videos are seen by a lot of people, it's still a very niche audience that has found the content through recommendations and other stuff that they're interested in. So I don't know if my YouTube audience is the perfect sample source for the general public. These people are, weather interested people in the first place, or they would have never stumbled upon my videos, at least for the most part. So that is a good question. And I think what's important here is I care about that. I do care. All right. And I could make every video, like the most crazy off the wall thing, and it might increase the amount of views I get by 10%. And I could be like, you know what? I don't need the approval of anybody else. I'm doing just fine without y'all, and I'm just going to keep doing my thing. But I don't want to be that way. I think that what I'm doing, and not just because of me, but because of just the way the world's going, I think what I'm doing is the future of broadcast meteorology. And I want to make sure that any precedent I set, any example that I set is a good one going forward. So me personally, I'm all about the thumbnails. I'm all about the titles. I'm all about click-through rate, engagement, watch time. Tell me more, like what's working with the people. But I understand that those numbers are a majority, right? There is a small, tiny percentage of people who maybe don't understand, who maybe are looking at a thumbnail and thinking the wrong thing about it. I understand that. And I don't want to be a villain. I don't want to be the bad guy that paints the entire thing that we're doing here in a bad light. I'm open to learning. I'm open to hearing other people's opinions, but I've just personally, I haven't heard anything that's a good argument against, once again, the overall net positive that the channel is providing for so many people.
So that's interesting, Ryan, that you mentioned that it's entertainment. Do you think your business model is primarily entertainment, and while you're entertaining them, you're giving them weather information?
Yeah, pretty much. Once again, the channel started off as me just kind of joking around and looking at deterministic model runs during winter and kind of geeking out about how much snow is going to fall. Like I would always, we would look at all of them and be like, oh, well, this looks like it's going to be Snowtown, baby, up here in Baltimore or something. And people just really resonated with that, other snow lovers and weather geeks. So it started off as just literally like purely entertainment. It wasn't until I was doing the videos as we went into March of 2021, there was two big high risk severe weather events in the Deep South. I know you guys remember that. And I decided that I was going to go live. I've got this YouTube channel. I've got a radar software. I've got the ability to live stream. I'm not good at Fortnite. So let's live stream what we've got here. All right. So I turned on the live stream and I did wall-to-wall severe weather coverage for 11 hours straight for that first, high risk event, and 300,000 people tuned in. And it was like my first time ever doing that. I didn't have that many subscribers. I had like 2,000 subscribers. Nobody knew who I was, but 300,000 people tuned into that broadcast. And I got so many letters and comments and messages from people being like, thank you for doing this in a way that is just more in line with what I like. Yeah, I could have watched the Weather Channel. I could have watched this. I could have watched that. But I just enjoyed the way that you were doing it. You're sitting down in a chair, you got the blue lights behind you. It's kind of a little bit more laid back. You explain things very thoroughly. You're not in a hurry because we don't have to cut to commercial break. Like people just really enjoyed it. And then also some people didn't have, they don't have access to cable TV and stuff anymore. And then on top of that, there's a whole nother audience who are just watching for entertainment. Even if it is a big bad situation for a local area, we've got 10,000 people watching from around the country that don't even live there, that are just kind of, interested in what's going to happen. So that was when I realized, okay, I can't do this solely on a weather, like an entertainment basis anymore. If I want to continue doing this, I have to get serious about it. And I got as serious as I could possibly get, because I think one of the things that invites so many people to my channel, one of the reasons why we have millions of viewers per month, is because it's not all serious. Is because, we play around with our titles. We have fun thumbnails. When there's a tornado warning, we got red flashing lights in here. Like there's a lot of things that I do that I personally believe is a perfect balance between entertainment and presenting real life-saving information.
So part of your business model is memberships. Ryan, talk about that. What does that cost? And what do the members get for that?
So YouTube introduced a feature around the time that I started the YouTube channel where you can subscribe to a channel. So usually subscribing is free, but now you can subscribe to a channel and then pay a monthly fee. And like the way I've got it set up is there's different tiers. There's $5 tier, the $10 tier, 15. And basically what you get is during these live streams that I do, your name just gets a little highlight and a little badge next to it in the chat, and you get extra emotes and stuff. And for the most part, that's about it. Yeah, I'll do like Q&As, like question and answer sessions for our members every once in a while. I'll do members only live streams where we kind of go a little bit more in depth on some things. I'll bring in meteorologist Andy Hill, who's on the team now, and we'll geek out about weather stuff that, maybe wouldn't do very well on the actual YouTube channel that we're trying to maintain a consistent high viewership on. We kind of experiment and do more fun things for the members specifically. And really the reason 99.9% of them are there is just because they want to support what I'm doing. They like it. They want to see their money go towards helping us hire more people or, make the equipment better, make it look better. And, it doesn't matter to them if they get anything in return. They're just trying to help out.
I want to hear about your equipment and your set, where you get your information. Obviously, a lot of it's just coming from the internet, different sources. You've got this Radar Omega, which is a really nice piece of radar software. Talk about the setup and how it's evolved over time.
Yeah. So before I started the weather channel here, I set my room upstairs in this house. There's an extra room up there, and I decided it was going to be my man cave. All right. And even though I'm not good at Fortnite, I still enjoy playing video games every once in a while. And I got this really impressive PC and all these monitors and stuff, thinking I was going to be some sort of gamer. I was like, you know what? I need to relax. I need to do something at the end of the day. Like I don't have a fishing boat. I don't, the only thing I really like, my hobby is like storm chasing and weather. And when that's not going on, like I need something else. So I was like, I'm going to dedicate a bunch of time and energy into building this gaming setup up here. I did that. I downloaded one game. It did nothing but stress me out. And I was like, you know what? Forget this. That's not the life for me. I'm not supposed to be a gamer. So here I was with this huge, really nice computer. all these monitors and everything. And I was like, well, what am I going to do with this? And that was one of the catalysts that led to the beginning of this channel. I was like, I can make something work here. I can play around and have a bunch of different radars up and stuff. But basically, what you're seeing now is an evolution of that. I've been slowly accumulating equipment and computers and lights and cameras and stuff over the years. Once again, I've been interested in YouTube since I was a kid, like 17 years old. And I've been trying to make YouTube videos for a long time, intermittently. None of them ever took off in the same way that this one has. So I've got, who knows how many cameras and stream decks and like audio mixers and keyboards and microphones and stuff that I've just accumulated over the years trying to do this YouTube thing. And I finally got to the place where I'm happy with it. And I'm not going to go anywhere up from here unless I install a green screen or something. But honestly, it would take me an hour to list off everything that's involved with the production here. I don't know if people are that interested in that or not.
Do you have a YouTube video that shows behind the scenes or anything at any point?
I don't, but it's something that I'm working on. I actually just got finished revamping the studio here. So it's a little bit more impressive now than it's ever been. So I think it's actually worthy of making a video about, and I'll probably do that pretty soon.
Well, you talked earlier about, TV broadcasting, and James has constantly for years, been on the message that it's changing and it might be dying. And how do you feel about that?
So anybody who's listening to this who may not like me, it's James Spann's fault, baby. Okay. It's James Spann's fault that I am here right now. I am the product of years of listening to that man talk about the inevitable downfall of TV weather. And it just really resonated with me. I believe it. I see it every day. If I was in the same position that I am, right? I'm 28 years old. I go and I talk to other 28-year-olds and they're all like, hey, I saw your YouTube video the other day. I saw your TikTok. That's awesome. It's going to rain tomorrow, whatever. I know if I was on TV, they wouldn't say that to me because they don't watch it. They don't. You know what I mean? So I see the same thing coming. And if it wasn't for that little seedling that he planted in my brain there, I probably would have never even attempted this. Yeah, I've heard James, I've heard his message. I've heard his stance on that for a long time. I agree with it. And here's the thing too. Here's another thing. I don't think that it's going away forever. I don't think that like what I'm doing is an exact replacement for it. Okay. I just think that it's opening up new opportunities. New doors are being opened, and like maybe a lot of eyes are going to go towards what I'm doing, but there will always be a need for hyper local focused messaging, especially during severe weather setups. Okay. Like, if you've got a weather guy that's been working in the same district, same area for 20 years and knows everything about every road and every street and knows how to communicate with the people that live there because he talks to them every day at the grocery store, that is valuable. And that is something that somebody like me will never be able to replace. But once again, if you're in college right now and you're getting ready to graduate, just know what I'm doing is a viable option for you. You don't have to go that way. I just think that I don't know exactly how the future is going to play out, but I think there's going to be room for both.
Well, that could become a pretty crowded space fairly quickly, Ryan. At least you'll have some distance on everybody, but without the constraints of an antenna and a set and all those things that television stations have to have, it's certainly you're doing an amazing job with your look. It looks like a television station setup there. Talk about what you call yourself, because this is a challenge for someone who doesn't have a degree in meteorology. Do you refer to yourself as a meteorologist or a forecaster, or what do you say about yourself?
So I don't refer to myself as a meteorologist, but I believe that if I ever wanted to, I'd have a pretty good case for it. because I mean, it just depends on who you ask, right? The hundreds of thousands of people that watch me on YouTube see me perform the job of a meteorologist on a day-to-day basis at a pretty high level. So to them, I am. And but I understand where it comes from. A lot of my colleagues and probably most of the people on this panel say that, I shouldn't call myself a meteorologist because I didn't complete that degree in the field. I think if you look up the definition of meteorologist, it's like, anybody who studies or does, weather forecasting as a profession. That's what I do. But I do believe there needs to be some sort of limitation or regulation on who gets to use that title. So I don't. That's the main reason why I don't. I don't want to inspire everybody who just thinks, oh, I'm a meteorologist today. I don't want that to happen. I don't want like me to be the guy that's like, well, he did it, so can I. So that's the only reason I don't do it. But maybe like 10 years from now or something, like once I've like kind of been ingrained in the system, I'll sneak it in there. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. Like it doesn't matter to me what you call me. I've come up with a couple different things: meteorologist, meteorologist, and
that's got a ring to it,
right? And the one that I've settled on, and what people usually refer to me as, is weather analyst.
Hey, Brian, let me ask you a question. If you consider going back to school, I think the gold standard is certification from AMS. That's our professional society, the American Meteorological Society. There's some great distance learning programs offered by a lot of colleges. Have you ever thought about going back to school and finishing and getting an AMS CBM? And that would settle the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something that is still on the table. The only reason I'm not doing it right now is just because of how much stuff is going on. Like we were talking about earlier, this YouTube channel is exploding. It's a business. I now manage I don't know how many employees. I've got a family. I've got a kid. I've got all this stuff going on. And that's no excuse. Like I could still do it and I want to do it. It's just right now is not the correct time. I do think that I will eventually do it though. I really do.
And I will say, the chat over on YouTube has turned into a cesspool. I'm over there trying to watch this thing, and it's not good. But I was going to say, and Bill, I didn't mean to horn in here, but Ryan, you seem to be a polarizing kind of figure. We've had some people tell us they'll never listen to this show again now that you're on here. Never. And we've had some people say, this is the greatest thing ever. We're going to listen every week. This is the greatest. Why do you think you're such, and again, just watching this chat, it's a sewage plant over here. Why do you think there's such polarization when it comes to your name? And again, I am like you. I'm so busy. I don't have time to watch things. I don't watch our own channel. I mean, I just don't. So I can't really comment on what you're doing because I've not had a chance to see it. But why do you think people are so that they love you or they hate you? I mean, there's no gray area here.
That is a good question. And I would like to know the answer to that myself. And I think it just comes down to the fact that because of, what I've done leading up to this, I'm just good at marketing. I'm good at getting attention. I'm good at getting eyeballs on me. And when you invite that much attention to yourself, you invite a world of different things. Like, every day on Twitter, somebody tells me I'm the most awesome person on earth. I could never do any wrong. And then somebody tells me I'm stupid and they hate my face and I'm ugly and they never want to see me again. And to me, I don't pay attention to any of it because it's just part of being in the position that I'm in. I pay attention to the good stuff because I know I'm not the best. I know I'm not this person that they think I am. And I don't pay attention to the bad stuff. Unless it seems like it's, constructive. If it's constructive criticism or something like that, I'll try to follow that along. But I couldn't tell you, James, exactly why it is that I seem to be polarizing, other than just it comes with any sort of person that tries to get eyes on themselves. When you ask for attention, you get it. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Right. And again, I didn't mean to horn in here, Bill. I'm going to ask you a few more. I'll turn it back over to Bill. But I'm very curious because you're right, Ryan. I've been saying for years and years and years, the Ron Burgundy deal is dead. The people that are watching me on television, they're old and they're dying. And if we don't reinvent the wheel, we're not going to have anything for the next generation. We're not. And it pains me. It grieves me to hand over a plane crash, a dumpster fire to these brilliant young people that want to do what I've done for a living for 42 years or 44 years. And that grieves me. And so to me, it's heartwarming to see this model apparently being successful financially. And you're clearly onto something here. And again, I guess I need to spend some more time and hang out with the YouTube guys, with all you guys to see what goes on. And this show's been, and Bill's been asking some really good questions. But from my perspective, really, it started, I guess, about a year ago. And I get all these messages and I have no idea where these thumbnails came from. I don't know if they're yours or somebody else's. There's got to be many, 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 many YouTubers. You're not the only one. And they say, is it true? 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 I'm thinking, what is this? Something has changed here. And, I guess my point on these thumbnails, and I don't want to, the thumbnail thing, we talked enough about that, but it would be like somebody coming into my office here and saying, all right, to get people to watch us on television, you're going to have to tease, you're going to have to embellish the truth. You're going to have to tell people, they're going to get 4 feet of snow, whatever these things say. And I guess maybe I'm just different. I'm from a different generation, but if they stuck a gun to my head, I'd just kill me. I'll just quit. I mean, I don't know. There's just something in my fabric, in my soul, where integrity is kind of a big deal. And that's the main negative. One of the negatives I see is having to play a game to be a YouTuber, to conform to their standards. And like if it changed in television, I'd just go do something else. So, and my question to you is, if you did not have those thumbnails, you're going to get 4 feet of snow this winter. I'm going to tell you exactly when it's going to snow. How much of a drop would you see in your numbers, just out of curiosity? I mean, how much does that affect the numbers in your bottom line?
Not much at this point, because we do have such a loyal following now. I could probably upload a video of, anything and we get 100,000 views or something, but that's not the point. The point is to make sure that anybody who is looking for the information that's inside of that video gets presented with it. And not all of those people are already following me. So we're always trying to find new people. And the way that works is that you have to, work with the YouTube algorithm to make it happen. And, in that big image full of thumbnails that you pulled up there, I agree with you wholeheartedly on some of them. Like, some of them are just plain bad, right? Like, some of them have big, large text that says, like, there's going to be a tornado here, and that is obviously, that's going to scare people. That's not good. That's not, and obviously in the video, they don't have any compelling evidence as to how there's going to be a tornado here. That's why those videos don't have nearly as many, interactions and stuff as mine. It's one of the reasons, even though the thumbnails are definitely more clickbait, they're more, enticing per se. But I agree with you. I'm just lucky that I am also equally interested in YouTube and how it works as I am the weather. So like, I get where you're coming from. You don't know anything about YouTube and the algorithm, and you don't care. You don't care to understand how it works. For some reason, that's another one of my major interests, is understanding how to get more eyes on a thumbnail and how to make sure people are enjoying the content and stuff. So again,
I'm asking these questions to try and help younger people, because they study you and they're watching what you're doing. And the other thing I see, you don't own YouTube. It could go away tomorrow. It could go away in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. The algorithm can change every hour. They can change every minute. And, does that concern you, that you don't own this platform, that you built your business on a platform that's owned by Google, Alphabet, and they might decide one day, they're going to pull the plug on it. And they pulled the plug on a lot of stuff. Does that concern you?
Yeah, it does. It certainly does. But it concerns me just as much as it should concern anybody who's going into any job. Once again, if you're getting out of college and you're going to go work for a TV station, when is the plug on that going to be pulled? When, there's a risk in anything that you could do. I personally would bet my life on the fact that Google and YouTube are going to be here until I pass away. I could be very wrong about that, but I think that we are not even close to seeing maximum numbers on how many people consume content through that website.
And I got one more, and I'll turn Bill. Bill, I feel bad. I've hogged the conversation.
Why? No,
well, I'm trying to
everyone
learn
involved.
things, and so it seems as though your business is built on extreme weather. When the weather is extreme, if there's a hurricane, a tornado outbreak, a flood, extreme cold, whatever, you get all these views. What do you do when the weather's not extreme? How do you get a paycheck and all the views when there's nothing happening? Do you have to embellish or fabricate extreme weather, or what do you do when it's just quiet as a mouse?
So what I do is I either don't upload. You can ask the people who are fans of the channel. They get really mad at me. Sometimes I'll disappear for a week if it's just going to be sunny and clear. Or I make videos like everybody's talking about with the thumbnail with 4 feet of snow. To me, that is a good filler piece of content that's educational. It's valuable. Everything in the video is verifiable and substantial. And it's evergreen. People will be interested in that video. It's got 600,000 views right now. It'll have 1 million by December. People are just constantly going to be interested in that, whether or not anything's going on right now. So as far as creating content goes, that's my route. And maybe that thumbnail specifically was too much. Maybe that one is the line. And I've learned that now. And maybe next time I'll turn it down a notch. But, we don't need to talk about the defense of the thumbnails anymore, but you see where I'm going. Like that's my way of filling in the blanks. And, I could probably post every day, like every time anything popped up on the models that was interesting, as 384 hours out, I could make a video every day and be like, this might be the next big blizzard. This could be the next Category 5 hurricane. But I don't want to do that. I just don't upload. And believe it or not, a lot of people don't think this, but I don't do this for the money. Like, once again, I started doing this for fun. I never imagined that I'd make a dime off of it. I'm not here just to make as much money as possible. I'm here to now reach as many people as possible so that we can hopefully help people in similar ways that we have in the past.
One more, and I'll turn it back over to Bill. You're kind of a one-man band, and you say you have meteorologists that work for you, but you're the front man. You're the guy that's on the air. How do you do that when you've got multiple days? I mean, days and days and days and days of severe weather and active weather all across the country. You need a break. How do you do it as a one-man band? Do you have a second guy that can come in and take over for you if your voice goes away, or if one day I'm going to drop dead in here, and I've got somebody ready to take my place when I drop dead. So what do you do when it just goes on forever? You know what I mean? These weeks and weeks in the spring where it's so active. How do you do it as a one-man show?
It comes down to really loving it. I like I said, there are some weeks, I think from about December 8th of 2021 through probably April 4th or something like that, I worked every day, every single day, nonstop, morning to dark. And I just loved it. The entire time it didn't bother me. I never felt like I needed a break because I was looking forward to coming in and making the next video or doing the next live stream. How can we make this one better? How can we keep people's attention longer? How can we help this person better? How can we raise more money so that if a tornado does hit this town, we can go get supplies to them or something? Like I'm just was in it. I didn't realize until the weather did start slowing down that I needed a break. And then I took one. When the weather's calm, when the weather nothing's going on with the weather, I just don't do as much. Some days I won't do anything if there's no weather going on. So I just try to take advantage of those moments as much as I can and just kind of rest up for the next stretch of severe weather.
Well, I'd like to follow up really quickly from a question that James just asked and pry into it a little bit more. He asked you a big question about, the controversial nature of the stuff that you produce, how it produces in some people, very positive, and some people very negative reactions. And you were talking a little bit about, not knowing why some of the feelings arise that do, but clearly I think you understand what makes people passionate followers of yours. I mean, that's got to be something that drives your business model. So I'd like to just focus on that for a minute. We know that you have a following that's not just enthusiastic about, the forecasts you give. They're extremely enthusiastic followers. And I think that that's something that is maybe a little different. And it's certainly something that people who are in weather communication love to strive for, this connection with people. I'm wondering if you can comment a little bit about that. Maybe that's something you can speak a little bit more to. Why do you think that it is that for those who do love you, that they feel that strongly?
Once again, it comes down to the amount of overall eyeballs that come to me. I believe. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's my charming personality or extremely good looks or just the fact that I'm just incredibly good at what I do here, because I don't believe that. There might be an aspect to the personality and stuff that draws people in, because I am 100% authentic. If you've ever watched a live stream where I'm sitting there for 11 hours, like, like I don't try to be anything that I'm not. One of the things that I say is one of the reasons why I didn't finish meteorology school and left that job at the TV stations, because I just don't like wearing a suit. I'm so glad I never have to do that again. Like I never will. I promise. The wedding day was the last time I'll ever wear one. But people resonate with that. People like that I don't try too hard to put on this persona that I am, Mr. Super Awesome Weatherman. I don't use words that maybe people don't understand. I always try to break it down and not use those words. So that's probably an aspect to it. But once again, when you invite, I've got millions, hundreds of millions of views on TikTok, all these millions of views on YouTube. When you invite that much attention to you, there's going to be a large group of people who dislike you, a large group of people who like you, and there's going to be extremes on both ends. And just the larger that overall pool is, the more noticeable those extremes become. That's my real opinion on that.
So Ryan, how do you encourage your followers, and how does any polarizing figure encourage their followers to not be so harsh in their attacks on the other side of the scale there? Because that seems like something that anyone who's in that type of position struggles with, having to manage that polarization.
Yeah. I think you just lead by example. I don't, like, once again, I'm open to these conversations. Anytime somebody that disagrees with me is in the room, I pay more attention to them than anybody else. I'm obsessed with the fact that, even though everything that I'm doing seemingly is just working perfectly, I am still doing something wrong, and I could learn from somebody else. So I've never given the vibe. I don't think that I think otherwise. And I think that we should just argue our way to the top and we're always right and I can do no wrong. I don't believe that. And I don't believe that anybody that is truly a big time follower of mine believes that. I just think that Twitter and some corners of the internet, YouTube chats sometimes can get toxic. And the more people that are in those spheres, the more you notice the extremes. Once again, I'm just, I don't think that there's anything that I could do to stop it. I think that I'm already doing a lot to not enhance it.
And is there any element of moderation or anything that could happen inside your channels that could help protect that sort of thing from getting out of hand, or you may already do that?
Yeah. So when I go live, sometimes we'll carry 20, 30, 40,000 concurrent viewers. We have to have moderators. We have a team of quite a few moderators in the chat that kind of take care of all that. And we don't just ban everybody for any reason. We just make sure that the conversation is on topic and we go from there. So yeah, we take moderation seriously because YouTube looks at that. If I was to let my chat go completely AWOL, and toxicity and bad ideas started cultivating in there, I could get banned. So I don't want that to happen. So we do everything we can to try to set good guidelines and be positive.
Yeah. So with that in mind, okay, so setting the good guidelines, being positive, you mentioned earlier that you're really engaged in this idea of learning as you go, and that you want to know, you're really balancing this. I want to entertain, to be that draw for people. I also want to inform. It's got to be an interesting balance to strike, and that you're really open to the idea of learning. And you want to push things, it sounds like, sort of to that line, but you don't want to cross it. And I really appreciate that spirit, that willingness to learn. I'm curious, how would you know, when you've gone too far? How is it that you're soliciting feedback? Who are you trying to listen to? You mentioned earlier that you can see in some of the social media commentary, maybe these people have, amongst the firestorm of just polar people, there's people who sometimes give you constructive comments. I'm just curious what that looks like for you. How do you know you've crossed the line? Where is your learning process coming from?
So one of the things is I do, and I probably shouldn't, especially at this point, but I do look a lot at the comments on the internet. I look at my YouTube comments, which the YouTube comments seem to always be positive. I can go to anytime I'm having a bad day, I'll go in my YouTube comments, and people are just always talking me up and saying I'm this awesome person. But if I ever want to ruin my day, sometimes I'll go to Twitter. And there's a lot of people who disagree with me there. And some people have made really good points. And I personally think it's important to get out of that echo chamber and get into the trenches there with the people that disagree with me. And that's why that's one of the reasons why I think the topic of my YouTube thumbnail with the snow outlook went so crazy on Twitter, is because I replied to almost every single tweet in those threads. Like, I was in there, I was trying to figure out, like, okay, I get that you don't like this. Here's my justification. Let's see if I'm just really wrong. Let's see that if I'm just like this crazy monster, or let's see if maybe you don't understand. And if you kind of understood my perspective a little bit, you would get a different idea. And sometimes on a platform like Twitter, it's not the best place to do that. Sometimes it leads nowhere productive. But sometimes it does. And Twitter is one of the places that I go. Another place that I go is to my team. So we manage everything that we do through a program called Discord. I think you guys you might be familiar with that, because there was some talk about maybe transferring NWS chat to Slack or Discord or a platform like it at one point. But the whole business is ran through this Discord server, and we have a channel in there where there's nothing but criticism for me. And I invite it, I'm like, hey, like if you, especially the meteorologist, or if you think that I'm doing something wrong, or if you think that this is the wrong direction, if you think that, we shouldn't do this or this, let me know here, and we'll talk about it. And sometimes I'll go there first. And it's like, I'm thinking about tweeting this. I'm thinking about, maybe putting this in the video. I think it'd be really entertaining. I think it'd be awesome. Are we going too far? So I just listen to anybody that's willing to talk to me about why they disagree with what I'm doing. And that's where I go to try to find that balance.
So Ryan, talk about the charity aspect of what you do, because I know you do take donations. What do you do with that money? Does it go to other charities that are helping out in these areas, or have you considered becoming a 501c3? So those donations are tax deductible.
So we have considered that, but honestly, it's just something that's been pushed to the back because of everything else that we're doing. I like the way that we do it now, because it's not a donation. We really don't accept charitable donations. One of the things that we did here recently was we took like $50,000 worth of supplies to the communities in Eastern Kentucky that were hit by the floods. And we literally, I got a bunch of people together. We got those supplies out of the trucks and delivered them by hand to the people who needed them, because a lot of people couldn't get out. They couldn't get to these distribution centers in the middle of town where everybody was dropping stuff off, because their bridges were washed out, their roads were washed out, their vehicles were washed away. So we got these like big military trucks and all-terrain vehicles, and we just went out there and we started delivering stuff to people. And the way we got that money was through profits from my business. So I did. I got on YouTube and I said, hey, listen, this happened. I think that we could come together and help these people out. Why don't you go buy something on my website? I got weather radios. I've got T-shirts. I got all this stuff. All the profit over the next weekend or so, we're going to give to these people in Eastern Kentucky. And we did like $100,000 in sales, ended up with, $50,000 in profit. And we went to Walmart. It's actually really hard to spend $50,000 at Walmart, you believe it or not, especially when you're buying water, Clorox and paper towels and stuff like that. It was several pallet loads and it took a lot of trucks, but yeah, that's what we're doing there. It's not, I don't know if I'm the right person to head up a charity. So if there's anybody out there that is like super awesome at running 501(c)s and is from that world, let's talk. Maybe there's something that we could do there, but I'm also pretty satisfied with the way that we do it right now.
Ryan, talk about the disaster in Eastern Kentucky. You mentioned it earlier, and you mentioned it several times. It obviously had to be very heart-rending for you. I've seen some of that scenery, Hazard, those towns, and the destruction was terrible, and the scenery before the flood was just phenomenal. Some of the most beautiful country in the United States. And so it's had to be really hard for all those people in those areas, because a lot of them probably did come from coal mining towns that are kind of down on their luck now because of that industry slipping. Talk about the scope of this disaster.
It's one of the saddest things I've ever witnessed in my life. I've never seen destruction on that level before. And you're right. It has literally changed the geography of the area in some places, so much so that really beautiful places are now just a memory. Like they're no longer there. They don't exist anymore. Or they're changed in such a way that they don't, resemble what they used to look like. But yeah, you're right. The place that got hit in Eastern Kentucky specifically is like the worst place that could possibly have gotten hit. There are little towns and there are places over here that do economically okay because there are still some coal mines in operation. There are some hospitals and colleges around here, but the towns specifically that were heaviest impacted by these floods, they don't have any of that. These people were already experiencing a really hard time. And then this happened. And a lot of them didn't have flood insurance. In us talking to people down there, half the people were like, we don't know what to do because we didn't get flood insurance because look, the creek is all the way over there. Nobody would ever think that it would get to where we are. We're up halfway up the side of the hill here. Like these people didn't ever expect something like that to happen. And it did. So yeah, it's terribly sad. I'm really glad that we were able to do what we did. But it just made me realize how big of a deal it was, because even though on paper and on social media and stuff, it seems like $50,000 worth of supplies is a lot. And maybe it was something that I should have felt good about, but it did nothing to me but make me realize that this is nowhere close to even making a dent. And if we ever do this again, we've got to make sure that we can do it at even a higher level. Because man, these people still need help to this day, and that they're going to be recovering for years, potentially decades before things get back to normal.
Now, I know you utilize chasers in their live streams in your live broadcasts. Talk about those relationships. I know that you have a relationship with Reed Timmer, and then talk about your own chasing and your storm seeker, and what happened on a farm to market road in Texas several months ago, and how you approached that after it happened.
Okay. Well, first of all, storm chasers. I love storm chasers. That's one of the things that I didn't realize before I got into this industry at the level that I'm in it right now, is that there are so many of them. I thought it was like a Reed Timmer and like a couple of other people, and like these were the only crazy people that was out there. But no, there's thousands of these crazy people, and and like a lot of them provide a really good service. A lot of them are your eyes and ears in a situation where there's nobody else around. Like just yesterday, we did a live stream. We were covering some severe weather in Iowa, and there was a tornado warning for a county that had like, I don't know, 20 people in it, 200, something like that. And here we had 4 professional live streaming storm chasers in this county, almost outnumbering the population. And like, if there was a tornado, if there was something like that had happened, there would be no way of confirming that without them, because we were also in like a radar hole. It was really far away from the site. So I love storm chasers. I think that it's awesome what they do. I call myself a storm chaser now because I decided when I started the YouTube channel, I was going to try to do that. I made this big deal out of the truck and, named it, and it's Doppler radar rainbow colored. And it's a monstrosity. It definitely gets eyeballs on it because I thought that I needed that to maybe help propel the channel and get in front of more people. It turns out that wasn't the case. But I like storm chasing. I like staying at a distance and taking pretty pictures. But the storm chasers that we end up working with a lot of times are the ones like Reed Timmer, who like to get right up underneath them and really provide ground truth, even in situations where from even a half a mile away or 1 mile away in a rain wrapped tornado situation, you wouldn't know what's going on in there. So we basically, once the channel started blowing up, and people started recognizing that I was doing this, they started reaching out to me, like they was like, hey, I'm going to be storm chasing in this area. Maybe I could send you a live feed to help your viewers out. And I was like, yeah, cool. And then eventually I realized that there are some chasers and there's some people who have been doing this for a long time and practice really good safety measures and understand, the etiquette of how everything works. And I should probably be prioritizing them over just anybody that's willing to send me a live stream. Because another thing I don't want to do is like encourage everybody to go out with their phone and try to send me a picture of it during a live stream. So we found Reed Timmer and we found, like people like Vince Welty, and we work with them on a contract basis. So if they're going to go out storm chasing, we just pay them for a day of having their live stream on the camera. And what I did is I went to them. I was like, how much do you usually get paid for this? And they told me, and I was like, well, I'll just do more than that. Like whatever that is, I'll always do more than that because you deserve more. And that's how that relationship started. That's why they keep coming back, because I just think what they're doing is so valuable. Even though I have paid a huge sum of money, I don't even want to look at the accounting and see what it is, but I have paid a lot of money to storm chasers to send me video of nothing but a road. It doesn't matter to me if there's a tornado or not, they still get paid. That's how that happened. And then one of my storm chases last year, to talk about the incident in Texas, every once in a while, I like to leave the studio and go chasing myself because I am passionate about it. I like it. It's not my main number one focus, but it is something that I like to do. Last year in 2021's April, it was actually April 27th, 2021, I was chasing in Texas near, I forget the town name, but it was south of Altus, Oklahoma, right there along the river. But we were chasing this supercell. It almost dropped the tornado. It was beautiful. I got one of the best pictures I've ever taken in my life. And then we were, me and my driver, kind of like we're celebrating the success of the chase. We went to Cracker Barrel and ate. And then on our way from the Cracker Barrel to our hotel, we got in a car accident. And what happened was my driver, for whatever reason, missed a stop sign. And we ended up ultimately causing a collision. It was a terrible situation, but thankfully everybody was okay. And what happened was, because the Storm Seeker, the truck is so colorful and my name is all over it, when pictures and details of this accident leaked onto the internet, it became a huge deal. And it was my first experience talking with and getting the feedback from the extreme side of the people who don't like me. This was every definition of a mob. This was it. There was a lot of bad things that were said, and I don't know if I handled it very well, but I tried to handle it well. And the way that I ended up doing it was I made a video about it. It's got a lot of views now, and I hope that everybody that was mad at me about that ended up watching it, because it explains everything. Obviously, everything was recorded. Like, I've got a million cameras on that truck. I went through the whole story of what happened. Talked about how my driver took full responsibility. He got a ticket. He's gotten all kinds of trouble. I'm sure his insurance is out the wazoo now. But there's nothing else that I could do outside of that, other than, what normally happens. I don't know what some people were expecting, but yeah, I definitely made some people mad there, because I think that it kind of, because the truck is so decorated and such a site kind of geared towards storm chasing, seeing it next to the text that says, somebody ran a stop sign, it's like, oh no, this is ruining our image. This is not making us look good. And I totally understand that. But we did everything we could to rectify the situation as easily and painless as possible.
Hey, Ryan, I was just curious, how much interaction have any of you had with the Weather Service, even either in the local area there or any other offices around the area? Any participation like the Weather Ready Nation Ambassador Program? Just curious what the relationship is like with the Weather Service, just in general.
So we don't have any real defined relationship with the National Weather Service yet. That's something I would like to talk about. That's something that I'm open to. And usually what happens is, after a big event, something that there's like a bunch of tornadoes and we happen to be one of the people that was covering it, somebody from the National Weather Service will reach out and say thank you. That happened in Texas a couple of times. That happened in the big outbreak that happened with Hurricane Ida up in New Jersey. So the relationship opportunity is there. The conversation has started. But a lot of these people are finding out what I'm doing. And a lot of times they find out in a way that's like, it's coming in a very surface level way. And they're like, oh no, like, this guy, we don't want to work with this guy. He's does nothing but post clickbait thumbnails. But once we end up being there during a severe weather situation and end up helping the, however many hundreds of thousands of people that watch, usually we'll get somebody that tries to make that contact for next time. So the way that I'm going about it is, I'm just hoping that if they want to reach out and they want to make that connection and they want to work together at any level, I'm 100% open to it. But I'm not going to go knocking on their door and being like, hey, you have to work with me, because I'm the same as like a TV guy. Like, that's going to be their decision to make. But I'm completely open with it. On the other side, EMAs, emergency managers, have been like really good, like well receptive of what we're doing. Mississippi and Tennessee, I think during any severe weather situation, the Ryan Hall Y'all YouTube channel is up at every EOC. Like, it's on the wall. Like they really like what I'm doing. In fact, I'm going to be a speaker at the Mississippi Conference, their annual banquet for emergency managers in November. So we're making that connection really fast and widespread first. And I think that that's going to help us build and help us understand what it should look like whenever we go to the National Weather Service, hopefully in the future.
You just added some detail that's very in line with the question I wanted to ask you, which was, borrowing from what Rick was talking about, there's an idea that's become really popular in the last 10 years or so, that all these components, the Weather Service and broadcast and emergency management, function as an integrated warning team or an integrated weather team. And I wanted to hear from you if you feel that, maybe you're not traditional broadcast media, but like you and James were discussing, you're maybe the future of broadcast media, and you have a lot of followers. Do you feel that you are a part of the integrated warning team? And in light of that, I would love to know your thoughts. You said you'd be interested in having the Weather Service reach out to you. I mean, there's IWTs that happen to coordinate, in local areas among the emergency managers, the broadcasters, the weather service, that are all in that area so that they can get on the same page about their practices, so they can share insights about their populations. Social scientists like me love to go to these things. We study populations in particular areas to understand the disaster subcultures there and some of the real issues of life saving that go on. Do you have an interest in participating in some of that kind of material? And do you see yourself as a part of the integrated warning team, even if you're not integrated yet? Certainly what you're talking about, it sounds like you're emerging as a piece of that puzzle. We'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
I'm interested in doing anything that makes the end experience for the people that are watching my videos or live streams better. So yeah, I'm open to being a part of that. Honestly, I don't know too much about it. That's the only reason why I haven't made the initial step forward. But whatever it takes to make the way that we deliver warnings better, easier, more in sync with what everybody else is doing, I'm open to that. Like I'm 100% on board. But the way I look at it is like the National Weather Service, even without a direct contact or like a weekly conversation with them, they give us plenty of information, like what I talk about in my videos and what I go over in my live streams all comes from the National Weather Service. I don't issue my own outlet, my own 7-day forecast. I don't issue my own warnings and watches. And like, we just relay the SPC, the WCPC, the CPC, and then the NWS. That's what we do. And we try to condense that information that's really fun and in a way that's really fun and entertaining and different. And I think we do that well. And we've been able to do that without talking to many people there. But once again, I would love to have that conversation and be integrated into that system overall.
So Ryan, we have a couple of emails that came in from some of our listeners. I thought I would throw your way. One of them is actually from a fellow Kentuckian. I have watched a few of your videos and I was wondering how you can effectively communicate uncertainty in forecasts. It seems to me that you present a lot of information that is apparently deterministic and rapid fire and then say at the end, it might not happen. This approach does nothing to communicate how likely the presented forecast is to happen. That said, I believe you have an interesting presentation style that is almost too quick for an old curmudgeon like me to absorb. And this is from Rick in Union, Kentucky.
Right. Well, whenever we in videos look at deterministic models, I always try to throw out that disclaimer that that's what it is. Right. I always try to say, this is not a forecast. And I know that only goes so far. I understand the complaints behind that. But like, that's part of what my whole channel is about. I think a lot of people who are tuning in aren't just looking for the answer as to whether or not it's going to storm. They want the inside details. They want how did I come to that conclusion? They want to understand more than just the surface level weather stuff, because they would watch the TV weather forecast or look at their phone app or whatever it is, that's all they wanted. So they're coming to me for a 10-minute long video talking about the short-term weather. I have to show the deterministic models because we actually look at it to make our forecasts like everybody does. Like, it's not the only thing that we look at, but it's one of the things. So basically what my videos are a behind the scenes look at how forecasts are made. And that does involve looking at deterministic models from time to time. And there's maybe some more that I could do with my verbal disclaimers, but I think for the most part, everybody that's watching understands what that is. I might be giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I think that most of my viewers and most of the general public has enough critical thinking skills to, kind of put that in a box and understand what it is, especially when I'm constantly saying it. So, yeah.
A couple of questions on warnings, and one of them actually is for me. I was just curious because I've watched some of your coverage before. When you decide to do a tornado warning, of course, we have the regular tornado warning that comes out to let the public know, hey, there's a tornado warning. There is some rotation. We're concerned about this, and then we have an observed, and then we can have the tornado emergency. I know that you have the different ways of kind of highlighting those with the lights and the flashing and the sounders. how do you make those determinations? Do you only do that when it's an observed tag from the National Weather Service, or, what is your kind of your protocol in keeping people informed on tornado warnings?
Yeah, so we watch every storm. So one of the things that people like about what I do, I believe, is that we start even before the warnings start coming out. So if it's a moderate risk day, we're live from the morning. We're watching the morning convection fade away. We're watching the dew points rise. We're watching instability increase. And then from the moment storms start firing, we closely inspect every single one and try to explain what's going on with them. And as soon as the warning is issued, we have an automated system that's comes from data from the National Weather Service that puts that on the screen. A tornado warning has been issued, and if it's radar indicated, I don't make the lights flash red, because I believe there's like a sound to it. It's like a 3 beep sound that kind of gets people's attention. And then we zoom in on that storm. We're like, okay, this is the tornado warning. This is the velocity. This is why or why not we believe a tornado may or may not be imminent here. But as soon as there's an observed or reported tag on it, then all of these studio lights behind me start flashing red. And it's a really dramatic effect. Some people say it might be too much, but I think that it's awesome. I think it's cool. I think it just adds to the overall experience of the watching the stream. And it does its job of capturing people's attention, because when I'm live for 11 hours straight, nobody's sitting there on the edge of their seat the whole time. They're putting it up on the TV and they're going on about their day or scrolling through TikTok. And then, that's a good way to get their attention. Be like, okay, here's another update. Maybe this one's the one that you need to pay attention to. So that's how we do that. And then the sound is even louder during a PDS thing. And then during a tornado emergency, which we've only been live for like 2 or 3 of those, we just changed the color scheme a little bit. But for the most part, we don't try to, I guess, look over the radar indicated warnings, but we do try to differentiate between them, because I think it's important, especially for the people who are watching me. They're there to get extra information. They want to be more weather aware than what a usual broadcast or forecast would get them. So I want to make sure that I make that determination or the distinction every single time.
We had another listener. This wanted to know your take. This is from our buddy Steve. Your take on the future of getting weather warnings to the public in the future. So where do you think we're going in getting warnings to the public?
So I think there's always going to be innovations in the way apps work on these wearable devices and phones. Everybody's has a phone. Everybody's probably eventually going to have the smart watch and probably even smart glasses and all that stuff. And there will be a million different ways of transmitting warnings from the National Weather Service. That's not going to change to those devices. But I think that's not the life-saving stuff. Like, the warning getting issued is very important. Okay. And getting that out to as many people as possible, just through a text or through a sound or a siren or whatever, that's very important. But what ends up being the life-saving factor is the way that it's communicated, the way that it's presented to you. Because, a lot of people, especially if you live in a very tornado prone area, you've probably seen 100 tornado warnings in your life, but odds are you haven't seen a tornado, maybe even more warnings than that. So having somebody like James Spann, or anybody that's a TV meteorologist, or anybody that's publicly doing a broadcast there to walk you through it and explain exactly what's going on, is going to continue to be the gold standard of making sure people are safe during storms. I don't know what that looks like 30 years from now. I don't know if that's going to be like in our brains through a chip or what, but that's not going to change, I don't believe.
All right, Ryan, I wanted to just say a couple of things. Ambassadors, your people are ambassadors. We found this in Birmingham, Kim, when we were talking to our folks that showed up for our town hall. They were obviously the people who were out there making a difference in their communities. They weren't just consuming this content that we were giving them. they were taking it and transferring it to their communities. And that's very, very important. So I think you've got a real opportunity there to make sure that your YouTubers are doing that in all their all their communities. And secondly, I would encourage you to go for your digital seal with the NWA. I think it's an affordable program with comparable qualifications and experience to the broadcast seals. And I think it's something you should really look into, because when they approached me about doing it, I was really concerned that I wouldn't be able to pass the test because I had never had a formal meteorology class. I had learned at the feet of someone like you did with Shane. I learned at the feet of Jerry Tracy in Birmingham, and had a lifetime of being as crazy about the weather as you are. And I was able to pass that test on the first time. And it's not an easy test, as everyone on this panel knows and understands. But I think you'd be surprised at how you would do. And that's what I wanted to say here. James, I'll toss it back to you for anything else you want to say to Ryan or add here, ask any more questions before we do our recorded segment.
Ryan, what does your wife say about all this?
She is incredibly supportive, incredibly supportive. She knows about how passionate I am about this, and she let me use that whole room for the weather studio man cave thing. And now she lets me use the whole living room. But I got her a new living room, so it's okay.
Okay. Well, awesome. Well, if you can stay for a few more minutes, we're going to hit Tony Rice and Jen's This Week in Tornado History. We're going to do picks of the week, and we're running late tonight because it's such an interesting show, but we're going to take a quick pause for Tony Rice, and then we'll hear from Jen. We'll come back with picks of the week as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
The September equinox arrives on Thursday evening, the 22nd, as the sun is directly over the equator. This also marks the first day of astronomical fall in the Northern Hemisphere. It's said to be the day when day and night are of equal length. The word does come from Latin for equal night, after all. While that's roughly true, the exact day when the length of day, most often defined as the time that the sun spends above the horizon, is closest to 12 hours, is actually the equilux. Now, the equilux, that happens a couple of days later. And even then, it's not exactly 12 hours, except for a very narrow strip across the middle of the country. North of there, it's a few seconds more. South, it's a few seconds less. So why doesn't this happen on the equinox? And why does it vary by location? The answers lie in the sun itself, and like so many things astronomical, in our atmosphere. You see, the sun, it's not a single point of light. It's a disk. When you look up at the sunrise on any given day, that's when the top of the disk peaks over the eastern horizon. And sunset, that's when the trailing edge finally sinks below the western horizon. The sun has an angular measurement of about 1/2 degree. And so does the moon, which is what makes solar eclipses on Earth so much cooler than anywhere else, but that's for another time. That 1/2 degree adds another 2.5 to 3 minutes of daylight each day. Refraction is another factor. Our atmosphere acts like a lens, bending sunlight up before the physical sunrise and after the physical sunset. And that provides another couple of minutes of sunlight each day. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, September 25th, 1900. Thomas Grisoulis in Significant Tornadoes documents an F3 tornado that moved 6 miles at Haverhill and Ferguson in Iowa. He determined that the F3 damage was to a farmhouse southwest of Ferguson. Also, the railroad depot, a blacksmith shop, and several barns were damaged. Freight cars were carried 150 feet. A hotel was, quote, blown apart. And tragically, the 2 young children of the hotel's owner was killed. Per an article from September 26, 1900 in the Daily Times in Davenport, Iowa, the names of the 2 children killed, George and Elmo Lovelady, ages 3 and 2. They were sons of John Lovelady, owner of the Hotel Hudson. John and his wife were injured. Another story, W.H. Robinson and his wife had a, quote, miraculous escape. They had a sleeping apartment at the depot. Quote, huge timbers fell onto them, but they protected them from the falling chimneys. Read about this event and hundreds more at tornadotalk.com.
All right, let's quickly go through picks of the week. We lost James A because he has a 9 o'clock Central Time newscast, so he had to scoot. But let's go to Troy Kimmel. Troy, you've been awfully quiet tonight. Give us a good pick of the week. Go.
Yeah, I've got kind of a plug for our friends, and sometimes I give them hell, but tonight I'm gonna give them a little praise. The people over at the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, and we've seen this webpage before, but they've really done some pretty cool stuff with it at weathercams.faa.gov. I'll tell you one of the most interesting things, James, and everyone, that in the last week, where all these weather cams, this started as a project largely in the very aviation important state of Alaska. And to see some of these pictures from St. Paul, the island, Nome, Alaska, from the airport, all these airport cams that are out there is really incredible. And the FAA has really done a nice job with this. They've expanded also into Hawaii and also Colorado lately. If you haven't had a chance to look at this site, it is a cool site to go check out.
And all of these picks will be up on the website, weatherbrains.com. Rick Smith, what you got for us this week?
Got a kind of a safe pick for this time of year. No, well, pun intended, I guess. Every 3 months, the Weather Service does a different seasonal safety campaign. So it's technically meteorological fall and about to be fall for everybody else. And their fall safety weather campaign is out there, and lots of good resources. If you poke around on the website, that's the link. That is my pick of the week. You'll find a lot of good stuff. There's new infographics constantly about sharing information about the different fall hazards, everything from severe weather to making a severe weather plan. So anyway, lots of good stuff. That's my pick.
Good deal. Okay, Kim, what you got for us this week?
Yeah, so my pick of the week is a little article about a bill that's been introduced in the House, and it's meant to try to deal with issues like what we saw this year with the Amazon warehouse, and maybe also in Mayfield with the candle factory. There were a lot of issues with workers not being able to seek shelter or knowing where to shelter. And there is an attempt here legislatively to try to make that something that is a worker right. I think that there are some really big challenges with the legislation, and it needs to really get fleshed out in a lot of ways. From an employer perspective, some of what they're suggesting would be just really difficult to manage. But one of the things that I think is really interesting is that they have a bit of a requirement for at least employers to be aware of potential environmental hazards, and that there should be some process then that goes on of informing employees and having some process of what to do there. So even if this bill only achieves in the end a tiny bit of what it's setting out to do, I think that there's some low-hanging fruit there that could be really, really good without the government forcing all businesses to have to let their employees just like leave or shut down. I think we can make some really good gains just by making people aware that something needs to go on. So very interesting piece.
And Kim, that the case, I think in at least one of those warehouses, maybe it's the Amazon warehouse, was that the workers were saying, I think we're under a tornado warning. And I think the people in the building were actually saying, oh, we'll worry about that. You get back to work. And that's what really worried me. So I don't like government overreach either, but at the same time, I don't like to hear when an employee goes to someone and says, hey, there's a tornado warning out. Oh no, you get back to work. So I'm with you. Just follow it.
That's really where the rub is on this. I think that's why this event with these businesses being impacted was so interesting for so many people, because you have this real conflict between, do we let free enterprise make this choice, or do we have a government entity that's going to speak to this and regulate it in some way? And it's just really, really hard because there is uncertainty in the forecast for so many of these high impact hazards. The footprint of tornadoes, even in warnings that verify, is extremely small. And so, you're just really faced with a conundrum there. But yeah, it's horrible to hear of people dying at work because there was a tornado that was warned for. They wanted to do something, their employer didn't let them. I don't blame anyone for having strong feelings about that. What to do to change that is a really tough question.
Yes.
Yeah. It will open up some good conversation for sure, but that's a great pick. Mine is a tweet from a meteorologist at WCIA television in Champaign, Illinois. Did you guys see this? These people are trying to do severe weather coverage, and the studio has flooded. I mean, they're literally standing in like ankle deep water while they're trying to do severe weather coverage. In my many years, that has never happened to me, but that was an interesting piece of video there. And again, it'll be up on weatherbrains.com. All right, Jen, what you got for us? Go.
So this comes from our friend Chris White, and this is over Twitter. And he is, by the way, the Mid-Atlantic ChaserCon tickets are on sale. That's in early November. Tornado Talk will be there. We're so excited to go. I'm taking some of my chipmunks with me to set up a table there, and we're excited to go. It's been a couple of years. And so Chris leads that event, but he sent this tweet. And it connects to what we talked about last week, and it's Barron launches toolkit to identify risk of flash flooding up to 2 hours in advance. So anything that we can do to increase awareness with that hazard, I think is great. So it's an interesting article on that.
Awesome. All right, Ryan Hall, we have stalled to give you time to come up with something very interesting as a pick of the week. So go.
I've got a shout out to one of the people that helps me edit. His name's Jaden Johnson, and it's a tweet from him. He took a picture. He was storm chasing yesterday in Iowa. Really interesting picture of a supercell with a bunch of horse and buggies in front of it. It looks like a kind of a storm chasing tour you might not want to be a part of, but it's really interesting. I'll send that link to you.
Awesome. All right, great. All right, Bill Murray, go.
Muted myself just because of that silly cough, but yeah, I'm going to take the foghorn, James, just because nobody else is going to take it tonight.
Well, let's just blow that foghorn.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Really enjoyed tonight's show. Looking forward to next week. Chad Entremont will be with us. Rich Fields on the 3rd, and then Nick Pittman on the 10th of October as WeatherBrains rolls on.
All right. And again, Ryan, give us plug whatever you want to plug. Go plug away. Go for it.
I mean, if you want to find anything that I do anywhere, it's just Ryan Hall, y'all. I decided to embrace the y'all from the beginning. So that's my name on all of the social media platforms. So it should be it. I think I'm good there.
Okay. And again, goodness, Ryan, I deal with haters. I've been told I should have been aborted by a coat hanger. I mean, it's brutal. And in watching this chat, on the YouTube side, and most people listen to this, they don't watch, they listen, but it's toxic. And, guys, can we be a little nicer? I mean, if you don't like something, maybe just don't say anything and just move on. I mean, it's we all deal with it, and it's an increasing problem. And as society gets polarized and everybody just wants to fight and punch each other, maybe just consider kindness when it comes to this stuff. I mean, it's just it is a strange place. Used to be when you did weather, you didn't have all these haters and trolls and stuff like that. I mean, you'd always get people griping because the forecast was wrong or you cut off some program, but goodness gracious. So anyway, Ryan, thanks for taking the time to be on the show. I know you're busy, but thank you so much.
Thank you. It was awesome.
And again, for those that don't know, we are typically live Monday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central, youtube.com/weatherbrains. That's the video side. But most of you listen. We know that. We thank you for listening. If you want to send us an email, we'll do a full email segment next week. The email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week and God bless. Thanks, Ryan. That was fun.
That was.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, guys. That was awesome.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good week.
Good night.
We will